What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. My name's CJ, and in today's video, we're going to be back at it with a 2-game NBA slate. We're going to be checking out some NBA single stat player props. We're talking points and rebounds today, and I'll have 5 picks for you, and hopefully we land 5 for 5. That would be awesome, wouldn't it? Yesterday's video ended up going 2 out of 5 or 3 out of 5, depending on if you took DeAndre Ayton under points or not. So things could have went a little bit better. Hopefully we'll do a little bit better in today's video. Let's look to improve. That's always the goal, right? If this is your first time to the channel, thank you so much for tuning in. Hit subscribe, make sure notifications are turned on. I drop videos just about every day, Monday through Friday, covering all sorts of NBA player props. Once NBA goes away, I'll get into MLB or some other sport. Trust me, it's just getting started. So definitely make sure you're subscribed and notifications turn on. You guys have been absolutely killing the likes. I appreciate that. Let's keep this streak of 40 or more likes going today. You guys have been smashing that like button. I appreciate you doing that for me. And if you don't play on PrizePicks, now's a great time to do so. They're doing a 100% instant deposit match on a deposit up to $100. So if you've never deposited on PrizePicks before, you put in anywhere from $20 to $100, they're going to match it, doubling your money, getting you going for the rest of this NBA playoff stretch. Just use promo code Curry or use the link down in the description of this video. Also down in the description, I'll leave links to my Twitter feed. If you want to give me a follow, please do so. And you can join our free Discord community. It doesn't cost you anything to get in there and mix and mingle and talk PrizePicks with other like-minded individuals. So with all of that out of the way, let's get into these 2 games that we've got tonight. We've got the Brooklyn Nets at the Milwaukee Bucks. This game has a 234 implied point total, with Milwaukee as 3.5 point favorites at home. Kind of hard to believe that Milwaukee's a 3.5 point favorite with the way that this series has played out so far, but I guess they're looking for the home team here to deliver a counter punch, because they've been taking a lot of punches and been on the defensive, so to speak, using boxing analogy throughout this playoff series so far. So maybe Milwaukee bounces back. Hopefully it's a competitive game. Last night's game absolutely stunk because it ended up being a blowout, and we hate blowouts. We want our stars, our studs, our players that we're looking to target, we want them to play as many minutes as possible, and that usually doesn't happen whenever you're talking about blowouts. So in the next game, we've got the Los Angeles Clippers at the Utah Jazz. This one has a little bit of a lower point total at 223 implied points. We've got Utah as a 3-point favorite at home. This is another game that I'm really looking forward to here. Los Angeles Clippers traveling to Utah, and we'll see how it goes. I had Rudy Gobert, I believe, in the other day going over, was it 12.5 rebounds or 13.5 rebounds? Anyway, he ended up missing. So maybe Rudy Gobert is in a good spot to bounce back, fresh off of his newly minted Defensive Player of the Year award. So we'll have to see. Mike Conley Jr. is out for this game. That is a key piece of information that I ought to mention before we move into the player props. No Mike Conley Jr. He was out last game as well, so just wanted to throw that out there. Now, let's talk about the points props that I like today. I've got 2 that kind of caught my eye, and the first one we'll start with is Giannis Antetokounmpo, the forward for the Milwaukee Bucks, as I mentioned, taking on the Brooklyn Nets. 7:50 p.m. Eastern time is the tip-off for this game over on PrizePicks. So 32.5 points. He was looking like a little bit too high, in my opinion. So let's dig into this together. So at 32.5 points, we look at the projections here on NumberFire. NumberFire, by the way, completely free site. You can go and use it. They got projections for all sorts of different single stat props and for fantasy point props as well. So Giannis is at 31.7 on NumberFire today, putting him under 32.5. Even if we were to round this up to 32, that still puts him under 32 points or less, and we take the under, well, then we're going to cash. So let's move over to NBA.com. I've got Giannis Antetokounmpo's player card already pulled up here. You can see his season average is 28.1 points per game, which is a few points lower than his projected points over on PrizePicks at 32.5. So the under is definitely still on the table as far as I'm concerned. So if we click stats, we can go and take a look at how well he's performed throughout the playoffs so far. 6 playoff game appearances, 35.2 minutes per game, and he's averaging just 24.3 points per game. Again, putting him under this 32.5 points prop and putting him under his season average of 28.1. So guys, so far, the under is definitely looking like the way to go. Now, I'm going to unveil a new feature here that PrizePicks just rolled out. I'm excited to show this off. You see this little four-way arrow here up in the top left-hand corner? If you click that, it will unveil the new feature, which is a 5-game log. In this case, looking at his points. So you can see that back on May 24th against the Miami Heat, he dropped 31, 17, 20, 34, and 18. So all in all, he's only covered 32.5 points or went over 32.5 points in just one out of his last 5 games, and that was against the Brooklyn Nets on June 5th. So maybe this is a bounce back spot for him, but as you can see, more often than not, he does stay under 32.5 points. So kind of a neat feature. This is something that will be going out live to the mobile app here for both Apple and Android. But for now, I believe it's just a web only feature. So definitely pretty cool. Check it out when you get some time. Now, with that out of the way, let's talk about some of the FanSure insights and scenarios for Giannis Antetokounmpo and this point prop of 32.5 points. I already mentioned in his last 7 games, he has only covered 32.5 points, just 1 out of 7. That's just a 14% cover percentage, and he's averaged 23 points per game in those 7 games. Now, when the Milwaukee Bucks are favorites, like they are tonight, the last 11 times that they've been favored to win, he has only covered this points prop 1 time out of the last 11 games. That's just a 9% cover percentage, averaging less than 24 points per game in that span, 23.8 to be exact. Now, coming off of a loss, the Milwaukee Bucks in their last 11 games where they've come off a loss, he has hit just 1 time out of 11 covering this 32.5 point prop. That's a 9% cover percentage, 26.8 points per game in his last 11 games coming off of a loss. Now, another scenario, when the Milwaukee Bucks are home teams in the last 6 games, which they were home team, easy for me to say, he has covered 0 out of the last 6 home games. 23.2 points per game. Not a very good average there. Not even coming close to 32.5. And last but not least, when the opponent has a winning percentage of over 500, his last 7 meetings against teams who meet that criteria, he's covered just 1 time. Good for a 14% cover percentage. That's just a 23 point per game average in those last 7 games against opponents with win percentages over 500. So as you can see, there's a variety of different scenarios here. And in all of the scenarios, Giannis Antetokounmpo has really struggled to cover this 32.5 point projection. So let's move over to RotoWire. We'll take a look at Giannis's point projection over there. Scroll up to the top here. And we've got Giannis at 32.5 on 2 different books, and then we got him at 33.5 on 1 other book. So at this first book here, he is a minus 118 to go under 32.5, which is a good sign for us if we are looking to take the under. Now, in this book here, he is dead even at minus 110, not really getting an edge here. And this last book is a little tricky. It's at 33.5 points. At 33.5 points, they are definitely taking the under there at minus 125. So I think I'm going to ride with the scenarios and the insights provided by FanSure. I'm going to look at those averages. I'm going to ride with those. I'm going to ride with the projections tonight and take the under on Giannis Antetokounmpo at 32.5 points. Not really seeing anything that's going to make me flip-flop off of that. All right, so the next guy I want to talk about, I'm actually high on 2 of his props. The first one we're going to discuss, though, is his points prop, and that is Utah Jazz forward Bryce ONeil, who is at 7.5 projected points today. It's 7.5 points. It seems like it's too low, and I know this guy has been covering 7.5 points with pretty good consistency. I think we talked about him in a previous video a couple days ago. So I think I'm looking to go back here to Bryce ONeil until he proves me wrong, until the wheels fall off. I'm going to keep riding the over on this 7.5 point prop. So let's go back to Number Fire. We'll take a look at Bryce ONeil's projected points today. So a quick search using Control F or Command F if you're on a Mac brings up the search function, and you can see he is projected for 7.2 points. Now, that is under 7.5 points, but it is in the neighborhood, the ballpark still, right, of 7.5 points. If this was like 6.5 or 6.2 points, I'd be a little bit concerned, but 7.2 kind of puts him in the same neck of the woods as 7.5. So with that in mind, we can move over to NBA.com. I've got his player card already pulled up here. and you could see that he is at 7 points per game for the season. Now, again, that is less than 7.5, but still doable here. It's just a 0.5 difference between his projection tonight and where he was scoring for the season averages, right? So we'll click stats. Let's look at how well he's performed throughout the playoffs so far. He's appeared in 6 playoff games, averaging almost 35 minutes per game. This is a great sign for us if we are looking to continue to take this over on Bryce ONeil's points. 10.5 points per game, putting him well over 7.5, clearing it by a differential of 3 whole points. So that is a very good sign. So far, the over still looking like a good way to go on Bryce ONeil. Now, I'm going to talk about some of the insights that I found using Fanshore. Fanshore has him in the last 5 games covering 7.5 points 5 out of 5 times. That's a 100% cover rate. He's averaging 12 points per game in his last 5 games, so that's fantastic. Also, something to take into consideration, when the Utah Jazz come off of a win in his last 8 games in which they have won, coming off of a win, 7 out of 8 covers. Good for 88%. Another strong cover percentage there. 10.1 points per game. That definitely gets the job done. Now, when he faces opponents with a win percentage over 500, as is the case with this Los Angeles Clippers team, in the last 5 meetings, he has covered all 5 times with a 12 point per game average. So again, very good sign for that one. And then last but not least, the favorite. When the Utah Jazz are favorites, out of the last 5 games, he has covered all 5 times, averaging 12 points per game. So things are looking great here for Bryce ONeil. I think he dropped 8 points in his last game. Let's go ahead and take a look at that game log again here over on PrizePicks. Pretty cool feature. Going back to May 26 against Memphis, he drops 14. That's a cover. 12, that's a cover. 9 covers, 17 covers, and 8 covers. So 5 games in a row here. His last 5, he's 5 for 5, covering 7.5 points. So I'm loving the way things are looking for Bryce ONeil. Go ahead and close that. We'll go back over to RotoWire. Let's type in ONeil's name here. And at 7.5 points across 3 different sites, this is kind of surprising to me. He is a -117 to go under, but a -109 to go over. So things are a little split here, but definitely favoring the under. Now over here, he's a -116 to go under and a -104 to go over. So again, the edge or the lean is toward the under on this prop. And then a very strong position being taken out here, a -133 to go under. Now, I have to disagree here. I'm just seeing too much evidence that could suggest that he goes for 8 or more points. I'm going to have to stick with it. I'm going to go against Vegas in this case, go against where the public is going, and I'm going to ride with Bryce ONeil over 7.5 points. Like I said, until he proves me wrong. He's just been hitting this with too much consistency, too much regularity for me to flip-flop. So there you have it for Bryce ONeil and his point prop. Now, while we're talking about Bryce ONeil, let's go ahead and talk about his rebound prop, another prop that I saw that really stood out to me. He's at 6.5 boards over on PrizePicks, so we're back over here on Number Fire. We've got his rebounds already pulled up here. 7.4 rebounds is his projected total tonight. Now, that puts him over 6.5 boards. 7 or more rebounds from Bryce ONeil, and we take the over, we'll cash. So let's go back over to his player card on NBA.com. You can see that for the season, he averages 6.8 rebounds per game, which does clear this 6.5 rebounds over on PrizePicks. Now, if you think about 6 and 7 rebounds, 6.8 leans more toward the 7 side of things, obviously, than it does 6. So that's a good sign for us. And we'll take a look at how well he's been rebounding throughout the playoffs so far. You can see that he is at 7.7 rebounds per game, so easily clearing this 6.5 rebound prop. I like the way things are shaping up here. Let's open up his recent game logs and take a look at his boards. Going back to May 26 against Memphis, 8 rebounds, that puts him over. 7 rebounds puts him over. 9 puts him over. 6, he does fall short here, but comes pretty close to 6.5. And last but not least, against the Clippers in the last game, he pulled down 11 rebounds. So his rebounds have been covering 4 out of the last 5 games. He has covered 6.5 boards. So that is looking very good for Bryce ONeil. Last but not least, we'll head back over to RotoWire. We'll take a look at the rebound category. Let's do a search here for Bryce ONeil's name. And we've got him at 6.5 boards across 3 different books here. So we've got him as a -125 to go over, a -132 to go over, and last but not least, a -133 to go over. So if you're not liking the Bryce ONeil over points prop, maybe you should consider Bryce ONeil over the rebound prop. Either prop to me is good. I can understand being a little bit weary of going over his points prop when all of the different sports books kind of suggest maybe we should be going under. So if that's the case, you can definitely consider going over on his rebound prop. It's up to you. You pick the one that you like more, but I think both are very viable in this case. So with that rebound prop out of the way, let's go ahead and talk about another one that I liked, and that was Pat Connaughton of the Milwaukee Bucks. Now he's at 3.5 rebounds, and he has been covering this 3.5 rebound prop pretty regularly. So let's go ahead and head back to Numberfire. We'll do a quick search here for Pat. And you can see that his rebounds, let me highlight that, are at 4 projected boards today, which puts him over 3.5. So that is a good sign, indicating we should be also leaning toward going over on this 3.5 rebound prop. So let's go ahead and pull up his player card on NBA.com. We've got him at 4.8 rebounds per game during the regular season. That again is a good sign, almost 5 rebounds per game throughout the regular season. So that puts him over 3.5 by far. We'll click stats here and we'll take a look at how well he's been rebounding throughout the playoffs so far. He's appeared in 6 playoff games, averaging just 17 minutes per game, but in that time, he does make pretty good work here of the glass. 3.8 rebounds per game puts him over this 3.5 mark with ease. So almost at 4 rebounds per game. Now let's go back over to PrizePicks. We'll open up his game logs here. You can see at 3.5 boards, he is covered in his last 3 games. So 3 out of 5 games he has covered this 3.5 rebound prop. Now we're going to look at FanSure real quick and see what kind of insights, what kind of scenarios we have for Pat Connaughton. The first one is in the last 13 games, he has covered this 3.5 rebound prop in 10 out of 13, which is good for a 77% cover percentage, averaging 4.9 rebounds per game. So that's pretty encouraging. 10 out of 13 is a very good cover percentage. Now, when the Milwaukee Bucks come off of a loss, in the last 8 times that has happened, he has covered 7 out of 8 of those games, averaging 5.4 rebounds per game. That's good for an 88% cover percentage. Now, in the situation where he is facing a bottom 10 defense, he is 5 out of 5 in covering this rebound prop. Good for 5.4 rebounds per game and a 100% cover percentage. And when the Milwaukee Bucks are the home team, in the last 6 times that has happened, he's covered 5 out of 6, good for an 83% cover percentage, averaging 6.2 rebounds per game. So I'm loving the rebounds here for Pat Connaughton, according to the data and the scenarios provided by FanSure. But let's wrap things up here on him and look at RotoWire real quick. So we type in Pat's name. We got him at 3.5 boards on 2 different sites. They got him as a -120 to go over 3.5 and a -128 to go over 3.5. So both sites agree the over on Pat Connaughton's the way to go. I'm loving the averages. I'm loving the FanSure scenarios that we have on Pat Connaughton here. And the projections also indicate that he can go over 3.5 boards. So I think I'm going to ride with it and go over on Pat Connaughton. I don't see any reason not to be honest with you. So that brings us to our 5th and final prop of the video, which is Mr. Paul George of the Los Angeles Clippers. And we're going to talk about his 7.5 rebounds because he's been crushing 7.5 boards with pretty good consistency here lately. In fact, he has hit 7.5 or more rebounds in 4 out of his last 5 games, according to FanSure. So let's back it up. We'll go over to Numberfire. We'll type in Paul George's name. And you can see he's projected at 7.3 rebounds, which puts him, pretty close to 7.5. No, it's not like a soaring high, sky high number that puts him well over 7.5, but, he's right there in that ballpark, 7 to 8 rebounds. So I'm okay with that projection, not totally down on it. So we're going to go back to NBA.com. I've got his player card pulled up. 6.6 rebounds per game for the regular season. That obviously is less than 7.5, but his numbers have been a lot better here throughout this playoff run for the Los Angeles Clippers and Paul George. So we'll take a look at those next, and you can see how well his rebounds have gone up versus his season averages. Now, he's appeared in 8 playoff games. He's playing over 40 minutes per game, getting a ton of minutes. And his rebounds are actually up to 9.1 rebounds per game, which is a huge uptick from the 6.6 that he was averaging throughout the regular season. So that's an encouraging sign if we are looking to take the over here on Paul George in the 7.5 rebound prop. Now, while we're talking about his playoff performances, let's open up his last 5 games and take a look at how often he covers this 7.5 boards. So we're going back to May 30th against the Dallas Mavericks. He covers that with 9 boards. Then you got 10, 13, falls short here with just 6 in that closeout game against the Dallas Mavericks. But then he bounces back in a big way against the Utah Jazz in game 1 with 10 rebounds. So all in all, he has covered, again, 4 out of his last 5 games. That's a very encouraging sign if we're looking to take the over on Paul George and this rebound prop. So we'll close that up. We'll head back over to RotoWire. Let's go ahead and type in Paul George's name here and take a look at the various sports books. We got him at 7.5 across the industry, minus 124 to go over. Liking the way that's looking. He's dead even here at minus 110 under, minus 110 over. And then last but not least, a strong minus 133 to go over 7.5 rebounds. So I'm rocking with it. I like the over on Paul George based on all the research and everything that I've seen. And I don't really see any reason why to go the opposite way and take the under here. And I don't feel like fading it is even in the question here. So I'm going to take the over on Paul George. But what do you guys think? Is there any of the props that I talked about that's really standing out to you? Which ones do you like? Which ones are you hating? Maybe there's one I didn't talk about. Leave it down in the comments section below. You might open my eyes. You might open somebody else's eyes who tunes into these videos and reads these comments. Any help that you guys want to give is much appreciated. Thank you so much for being a part of the community, watching these videos. Again, make sure you're subscribed with notifications turned on. Hit that thumbs up before you go, and we'll catch you in the next video. This is CJ. Peace out.